Today, I wanted to talk about why people will never ever stop reading books and, kind of talk about the kind of digitalization of everything. Now, people, ever since computers came out, movies became a thing, have been, reading less and less books. It was always, well, why would I read a book when I can watch TV? Why should I even, bother reading a book? Just look at whenever TVs came out, every household had a TV, but not every household had a library, right? But if you have been following kind of media trends lately, you would see that a lot of people are still reading. There are still forums for reading, there are still websites, and they're being supported with a lot of people. And I'm a guy who, I like to read, but haven't always been the most consistent with it. Personally, I think the hardest thing is to find actually a good book to read because you can find a book, but if that book isn't gonna hit that right point, especially in a person who has access to a computer, for example, then that reading is going to be a lot harder. So for me, my cup of tea is fantasy or sci-fi books. Which is not no biographies, nothing like that, because I finished reading Lord of the Rings, which I woke up every day, and my morning routine was wake up, read that book, escape from reality, and then go about my day, and that's how I actually finished the book. And then I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm a person who reads now. And then I picked up Steve Jobs' biography, and I got through about 2/3 of the book before I just completely lost my love of reading. Because a biography didn't have that same thing that the fantasy book had. So it's also a lot about what kind of book. But now I'm again reading books. At least now I'm reading Harry Potter because fantasy. And after Harry Potter, I know I'll pick up maybe. I think I'm gonna pick up the book that inspired Blade Runner, maybe. But today I just wanted to talk about kind of why people will always read books, and that is because there are things in our world that once created never really go out of date. Or, if they do go out of date, it's going to be because of some giant evolutionary leap. Like, for example, we become, AI, artificial beings, and, we don't really read. Our brains work differently or something like that. But that's far from happening. I'm talking about the now and near future. And also, if humans stay humans. And that's because, for example, let's look at a wheel. The wheel was invented, very, very long ago. I don't know exactly when it was invented, but, it was invented at the dawn of human civilization, basically. And we are still using wheels everywhere today. I mean, look at cars, look at doors. I mean, hinges work with, the concept of wheels. Everything, that moves somewhere has a wheel. Watches use wheels. Or everything that, is mechanical kind of uses wheels. I think even computers have some sort of wheels, of sorts. And books are very much like that. They are a, content form of content that is basically, you just can't replace it. Because, we read still. It's not like reading is obsolescent. Like, for example, if I want to make a video on YouTube, I still need to, read the instructions on how to make, how to edit the video, how to do the whole OBS thing. I need to configure. Basically, I need to read. If I'm making, a video on a topic that's, I'm not fully educated on, I need to research that topic. So reading is still here. It's only, more like pure information gathering. And we have kind of went, we kind of whenever the TV came out, we went from an internal GPU unit where we made a movie in our brains. We went to where the movie was already made. Now, I'm a huge movie lover. I think a mix of the two, or even the three, with video games is, the best. I think that's the kind of best combination. But I just wanted to kind of make a video explaining why reading will never go away, and also I wanted to kind of use this video to emphasize a point about just things that we can take away, but we will not, purely because we're human. So, for example, if Tesla cars, like Tesla or other modern cars, they all have digital screens, like just a big tablet, and the tablet controls the whole car. I think that's not gonna be the case for long because humans are physical beings. We don't like everything to be a touch screen. We need physical, buttons and toggles and things we can flip purely because we're physical beings. If I was an AI, yeah, sure, probably I wouldn't mind a touch screen. But as a physical being, I do need buttons. I don't I like, for example, I much more prefer typing on my computer than my phone because my phone has a touch screen, my computer has a proper keyboard. That's why I also really, touch screens just they're fine, right? But when you replace real physical things with touch screens, it takes away from the experience. The same as with reading. Yeah, you have movies, and you have other forms of entertainment, but nothing can take away that essential element of reading. Whenever you're reading a book, right? You're reading the book and it gives you it gives you emotions, and your brain chemistry is in such a state that it's only I think that state is only present when you're like dreaming. That calm sense of obviously depends on what you're reading and where you are, what's the life situation, but in general when you're reading your brain just really really calms down. That's just because reading kind of has that effect. You don't really have that with movies. I mean, sometimes yes you do, but reading just is much more powerful and potent in that sense. And I'm not saying one is better than the other. I'm just kind of trying to say that they're different. And reading won't ever go away purely because reading is just a thing that, like the wheel, has been there since the dawn of okay, not okay, it hasn't been there since the dawn of human civilization, but it has been there for a very long time, and it's something that we still use. Like if we didn't use like letters at all. Like if, for example, if my image on my desktop, you save a PNG, if it didn't have a text below it, then I would I could say okay fine, maybe we're not reading but we still read a lot. Like for example, like how many like ask like I don't know who's watching this really, but ask yourself, like, how many times have you read a long Reddit post or a Twitter post, or how many times have you read anything online, like a long text message, for example, or some article about some event you care about? Like reading never like really went away. It's still here and will never go away. And this is not just about reading. It's more about kind of just because you can doesn't mean you should kind of situation. Obviously, you can learn from a YouTube video, right? But, you can learn from a YouTube video, obviously, but, we still kinda use books in schools. But for example, um, I don't know, I think the YouTube video is not the best, example purely because now with ChatGPT, I think, learning with artificial intelligence will be one of the best ways of learning. But, if you still wanna learn facts, you still have to read. Right? I mean, Wikipedia and stuff like that, and long articles, scientific articles are posted in, a scientific articles is very long. It's not that short. So, still for learning information, you need to rely on reading a lot, right? And it's not just about reading as a hobby or a personal vendetta. It's more about the fact that reading also really improves the brain. It's not just about, okay, well, we like reading. No, it's more about we need reading to, improve the brain. And it's not only kind of present in books that have factual information in them, like, for example, a biography or a book. Obviously, there can be like more like books that are more, how do I put this, that advance the brain more, perhaps. I don't really know about that. For example, I read 1984, and that book is, it's still a, science fiction book, but that book much more emphasizes on the problems in, society back then and still problems in society now. So it's maybe, how do I put this, more educational than, let's say, Harry Potter, to be honest. But from another viewpoint, Harry Potter is still a book that really engages the brain, right? It's not as dark. For example, 1984 is a very dark book. Actually, a lot of books that are science fiction, but kind of present on real world problems. So considered much more educational. They're all very sad. Not all of them, but a lot of them are sad. So it's really more about kind of what you prefer to read, because reading anything, like even Harry Potter, it improves the brain. And I think there was actually a study where scientists proved that reading fantasy and science fiction actually improved the brain much more. And I think that's primarily because whenever you're reading science fiction or anything that is not grounded in reality, you're really pushing your brain to the limit. So, for example, whenever I'm reading Harry Potter, I'm using Harry Potter just because I really like the damn book. I have to imagine wands and a different world, and it's not only about life is not about our world. It's not only about our world. Like, humans are very imaginative beings, and I think one of the biggest problems in the world is that stories like Harry Potter, like Lord of the Rings, like The Hobbit, like or even like some of the Disney movies, have become more like for kids and not for adults. And adults have kind of put themselves in this really unhealthy, realistic, grounded, stance. Obviously, still kind of dabbling in maybe some, like for example, religion or something, but they dabble in religion only because they actually believe it. Even though if we were to assume, I'm gonna say assume because I don't want to offend anybody, we were to assume, religion is not real and it's all a fairy tale, it's essentially the same thing as a Harry Potter book. Only in our society, it's considered to be, actually a real thing. So that's kind of one thing. But humans are imaginative beings, and that's also something Tolkien tried to do with Lord of the Rings, is take a fairy tale and make it not for children, but make it for children and adults. Basically, make it mature, right? Make it mature because he believed that, okay, I'm not going to start. This is not a video about why. I already made a video about that, right? But I just kind of wanted to, make a video more about why reading is here, it will be here, why it's good, and, what kind of reading I wanted to kind of talk about what I like to do, right? But I think that if people read more, people would be much more, for example, not only much more, intelligent, it would also be much more calm, I think. Although I don't really know about that, but what's a better way to spend your time, going to a party or reading a book, right? If people, but I think reading is not gonna go away. I kind of just made this video because a lot of people say, oh, reading, oh, who needs reading or something like that. You know what I mean? Obviously, not everybody. I think a lot of people are actually quite aware, but there is a huge consensus. Well, I don't need to read or something like that. So this was kind of just a video more about my thoughts on reading in general and why it's gonna stay, and more about things that are never really going to go away, no matter how much, uh, you know, they get overtaken by other technologies, right? Like movies, TV, stuff like that. Maybe they might get, hurt a little bit, but they're still gonna, in a general sense, be there, you know. So yeah, so that's kind of my little video, little vlog about that. Obviously, this might kind of different from my, regular content, which is more about news and stuff like that. But, I just couldn't, like, the problem with making content about, things that are gonna happen, like, the Subnautica 2 controversy, that's just, you can only make a video once, that thing happens, and I think it's very unhealthy to expect things like that to always be happening, right? Or to continue happening or stuff like that, and, it's always like, "Okay, I'll have to wait a week for another story like this," or something like that. It's in a sense are also quite mentally unhealthy. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. Right, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And in the comments, I would love to hear your experiences with reading and with fairy tales. And if you're a person who thinks fairy tales and stuff like that, imaginary things are only for children, I would really like you to kind of take this video into consideration. Think about it. Is kind of maybe humans are more capable, right? Especially adults. Maybe adults should also participate. And I think a lot of adults have gone in that direction, especially with the invention, of video games. Like a lot of adults got converted into this just because of video games, because video games tend to be more mature than a lot of animations, stuff like that. So that's kind of one thing, and also the prospect of anime. I think anime is the most um, best example of animation being not only for children but also for adults. An imaginary world animated that is watched by adults. I think that's what kind of Tolkien was also trying to push. But yeah, hope you enjoyed. Leave a like if you liked it. Leave a dislike, obviously, if you disliked it. Subscribe. Sorry. Subscribe if you enjoy my content, right? Because I don't want you to subscribe because of one video. If you look at my previous videos, you find them to be worthwhile. Check the comment section, stuff like that. What the kind of other people saying. And yeah, hope you enjoyed. Live long and prosper, and goodbye.